This is 3.1, Functions, Part 2. So we have domain, and that is all the possible input values, which is what can x be? What values of x do I have in my function? And then we have y, which are all the possible output values, so what can y be? Range is what can y be. So in my little diagram here, domain represents the possible x values, and range represents the possible y values. So what are the domain and range of this function? So I have this graph here, and I have a bunch of different points, 5 different points on it. I'm going to start by listing out what are the coordinates of these. So the coordinates are listed x, then y, and I have -2, 0, -1, 1, 0, 2, 1, 3, and 2, 4. So possible x values, -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. And possible y values go from 1 to 4, so 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Since my graph is not connected, it is just these individual values. We cannot say that we can have 1.5 because there's no line there to connect it to show that it's a possibility. So now on this one, it is connected, and my x values go from -2 to 3, and my y's go from 1 to 4. So I would show this with inequalities because we can have everything in between -2 and 3. So -2 is less than or equal to x, which is less than or equal to 3. And the range goes from 1 up to 4, lowest value to highest value. And we put a y in the middle there because we're talking about y values. And this one it has a solid line, so it is a range of values, meaning it is this whole section of values. And here we have a parabola, and my domain goes from -3 to +3. The range goes from -2 up to 5. So we show those with our inequalities. And we have independent variable, and that is a variable that represents the inputs of a function. They can be anything in that domain. And we have dependent variables, and those represent the output values because they depend on the input. I have to know the dependent based upon what the input is. So we say outputs depend on inputs. They could say that as y is a function of x. They could say with respect to x, and that means y depends on x. So y is dependent, x is independent. Alright. The function y equals -2x plus 8 represents the amount of water left in your glass after you take x number of sips. So I'm drinking water, I start with a full glass. Each sip is the same size, and then we're going to figure out the independent variable. So the number of sips, that can change, and we do not need to know the number of water, the amount of water, to know how much we drank, to know how many sips we took. The dependent variable is the amount of water. How much water is left in the glass depends on how many sips you take. So, to figure out domain and range, I can make a table here, and I get to pick my x values. I can drink no water and have x is 0. And I'm only using whole numbers here, 1, 2, 3, 4, because I can't have half a sip. You either sip or you don't. So it's 1, 2, 3, or 4. And in this situation, all sips are the same size. So if I drink no water and plug that in for x in my function, I get 8, probably 8 ounces. Then if I take 1 sip, I have 6 ounces left. 2 sips means 4 ounces, 3 sips is 2 ounces left, and if I take 4 sips, that is 0 ounces left. I drank all the water there. So my domain can be 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4, and the range can go from 8, 6, 4, 2, and 0.